Hi, I'm Shekhar Kapur and welcome everybody. Wherever you are in the world, welcome. We are in Mumbai and we are here to launch a set of DVDs with Sadhguru that I interviewed Sadhguru called Conversations with a Mystic. I'm a film director. You may well ask why a film director is sitting here. I think that in the course of asking the right questions about cinema and storytelling and the creation of stories, ultimately there is one story that I always refer to is that my stories are always an attempt to take to connect what is finite to the infinite, because otherwise you live in a kind of a limbo of being finite with everything that is measurable, and then you look out at the sky and you say, well, nothing is measurable. And since time, that's what man has done. He's ultimately created stories as a survival kit of how he can handle that which is infinite with his or her own life that seems finite. So I think a step in the direction of searching for that connection or that bridge between the two is quite natural with a filmmaker. So that's where I lead into my conversations with this incredible man called Sadhguru, who I just happened to meet, but then they say nothing really happens. Everything is coordinated by a series of karmas. So it was my destiny and karma to meet Sadhguru a few years ago in a place called Puerto Rico, where we were both at the same conference. And I met this man that everybody was getting attracted to, and naturally I was. So I went and we were supposed to go somewhere and he offered to drive me there. I think if you ever meet Sadhguru and if he offers to drive you somewhere, I would highly recommend that you decline. Because it will be, because there is only that in which, you trust your Guru, okay?
Yet when he's the safest driver.
Yes, of course. You trust your Guru. But when he's taking a corner at about 85 kilometers, 85 miles an hour, you kind of, you're just at the crux of, do I really trust him? Will I really survive this? And then you have to convince yourself, well, it's Sadhguru, he knows, you trust him. But be careful of his driving. And that's how I met him. And that set off a great, great relationship. And I've often been asked, as I was today, is Sadhguru your friend? And I say, yeah, he's probably one of my best friends. But is he your Guru? And say, yeah, but Guru, friend, mystic, a man that I turn to when I want to talk about those things that I know less about, a man in whose presence I feel vulnerable, but that's the strange thing. A great relationship for me with Sadhguru is about the fact that I feel completely vulnerable and completely comfortable in that vulnerability. In fact, there's no other relationship I have where I can feel so comfortable with a great sense of being completely vulnerable. And I think that's probably because, but we'll talk more about that because some of those questions go that way about what does it mean to be completely vulnerable, and so vulnerable that is the greatest power in the world is vulnerability. We have 4 tapes here. The tapes are, let me say, is love a chemical hijack? I mean, is it your hormones that suddenly take you across and give you a great sense of love that we say, oh, it's love, but it's actually just hormones? And if it's hormones, yes, it probably is. What lies beyond hormones? Can love exist beyond hormones? Can relationships exist beyond hormones? And you would be probably surprised because each tape goes in from talking about hormones and love and then starts to get into almost everything, because everything is interconnected, and it gets naturally into life and death and children. And there's a separate one on education, but that is also about love. Why would it not be? So we have, is love a chemical hijack? Guru, a roadmap. Where does a Guru come into your life? What does a Guru really lay out for you? Why a Guru? How do you find your Guru? Do you need to find a guru? Can your guru be sitting in the house next door without you realizing it? Is it your destiny to meet your guru? But also in a very practical way, when you search for a guru, why are you searching and what are you searching for? Because that's fundamental. A lot of us are not asking the right question, and that's one of the things that I learned from Sadhguru is, Shekhar, you're not asking the right question. Well, is this right? Shekhar, you're not asking the right question. Okay, no, Shekhar, you're not really, you're too scared to ask the right question. And then I said, yeah, I'm not being vulnerable enough. Anyway, we'll come to that. The third one is called A Miracle of Life, which must be a miracle. And I guess if life is miracle, then death must be a miracle. How can one not be a miracle against the other? So there is a lot of discussion in that DVD. And education and child blossoming. Is education as we see it now an imposition, or is it an encouragement? Where does education lie? And if you go to Isha Foundation, you'll find an amazing and absolutely amazing attitude towards education, and the most amazing, curious, wonderful, joyful kids I've ever seen in my life. But enough of me and my views, because we are really here to talk to Sadhguru and his views. So please may I introduce to all of you all over the world, wherever you are. And I'm sorry, I apologize, and we both apologize for the fact that our connections are not two-way right now. Next time they will be. And I will turn this over to Sadhguru. And very happy to meet you, very happy to be here. A bit embarrassed because I have to ask you all these questions on behalf of other people, because these questions reverberate with me. How would you like to say a few words to the audience all over the world, and then we can start with the questions?
Like you were saying, filmmaking is about exploring the relationship between the finite and the infinite. My work is to transport people from the finite to the infinite, to create the necessary tools, to build a necessary vehicle for them so that they can transport themselves from the finite to the infinite. The whole spiritual process is just that. Or in other words, what I'm saying is, whether it's filmmaking or cooking or anything mundane that one can do, in all those aspects, if you look deep enough, it's the same journey. It is just that in one or in certain type of activity, it may be more apparent. But if you look deep enough, whether you're gardening or cooking or kicking a ball or making a film, essentially it's the same thing, to move from finite to the infinite. The very journey of a human being is just that. Whoever you are right now, you want to be something more. If that happens, you want to be something more. It's an endless something more, which is a longing for the infinite, finding expression in installments. So, my work is just to help people to understand that going in installments is not going to get you to infinite. Though the direction is right, the vehicle that you're employing is too limited, it can't get you there. There are other ways to make it. Everybody has the aspiration, but they don't have the means. So my essential work and my life is to provide them the means for their fundamental aspiration of every human being.
So I have to stop myself from just exploring, because every time you talk to me, Sadhguru, I have another question, and then you talk to me and I have another question, and I'm sure like…
It's time to transport yourself.
It's transport, because what you're saying is I at one time have to go beyond telling stories of duality and just transpose myself into a singularity. See, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this because it's about your questions today, it's not just about my questions. But just one more question on this. That vehicle, this question of, when I write a story, it's always a conflict between two things, whether it's good or evil, man, woman, destiny, fighting your destiny. So I create a conflict to solve a conflict in telling a story.
See, when you make a film or write a story for that matter, what you're doing is you're just taking a segment of life as you see it, maybe slightly dramatized, but you're taking a segment of life. In that segment of life, there is no solution, there is only conflict. Because everything, there's one way of looking at it is, Just about everything on this planet or anywhere in the existence is conflict. Right now, Earth is revolving around the sun. Sun is holding it in some ways, but Earth is trying to go away. It has centrifugal force going away. This is holding it, it's a conflict. So like this, if you look at it, a plant is trying to grow. If you look at it, there's a tremendous conflict in the earth. So, a worm is eaten by an insect is eaten by a bird is eaten by an animal is eaten by something else. This is going on. It is all a conflict if you look at it one way. Or another way of looking at it is, it is just harmonious, everything is eating itself. The most beautiful story that comes out of the yogic lore is, one of the most beautiful stories that comes out of the yogic lore is, if you enter any temple, at the entrance, you would see a kind of a demon's face with two hands sticking out of his mouth. This is the face of Kirtimukha, he's called. Kirtimukha means a glorious face. This was… he's referred to as a demon, and Shiva had trouble with somebody. So, he created a demon and said, go deal with this guy. But the moment he created this demon, that man fell at his feet and begged for mercy. Then he said, okay, spare him. Then the demon said, you created me to eat this man and I'm hungry, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So Shiva was in one of those moods, he said, you eat yourself. And he ate himself up. By the time Shiva looked at him, he had eaten himself up completely, except for his hands and his face. Everything was eaten up. Only the face was left. So Shiva looked at this and said, you are the most glorious face. So you must be above all gods. So every temple, before you enter, above the god's level, you will see a face, a demon's face with hands sticking out, because that is the last part that he's eating up. Someone who is able to consume himself is the ultimate glorious face. So essentially, life is just that. Either you're consumed by something else, or if you have the necessary intelligence and awareness, you consume yourself. If you consume yourself, you become a glorious face. If you let somebody else consume you, you're just somebody's breakfast maybe.
Okay, all right. It's okay, Sadhguru. I'm going to stop myself from asking you another question for myself. And let me ask you some of the questions. I'm not sure where these questions have come from, but I'm sure anybody who's there will recognize their questions. Here's the first question. Many spiritual leaders are working towards creating a peaceful world, bringing down violence. What steps have you taken in that direction? Do you think you can impact the leaders of the warring nations and bring about peace using your spiritual teachings or methods?
See, there are conflicts which have been hanging upon the planet for decades for the same reasons. Different types of conflicts have happened. The spiritual leaders or spiritual process essentially focuses on bringing peacefulness and blissfulness to an individual human being. So, when I say an individual human being, it does not matter who he is, whether he is a leader of a nation or a business leader or just a man on the street or whatever it is. It works for every human being. So definitely, spiritual process has to touch everybody, particularly people who are in positions of responsibility and power, because they can make a huge difference for lots of people, because they… when you're a leader of a nation or even these days large businesses, every thought, every emotion, every action that you generate is impacting millions of people. Just the very thought that you generate is impacting people in so many different ways. When such a responsibility has been placed in your hands, it's extremely important, the leaders of nations, large business corporations, they must take these steps to ensure as to how they are within themselves. What kind of beings are they? Some work has to be done upon themselves, because every thought and emotion that they generate is impacting millions of people. When such a privilege has been given to you, if you just think something is going to happen to 1,000,000 people, It's extremely important that you conduct this privilege in a responsible manner. And you can only conduct this responsibly if there is a spiritual process within you. When I say a spiritual process, maybe not everybody understands what what it means. So one way of putting it is, there is a certain sense of inclusiveness, that you are not an exclusive entity, you are an inclusive process. And this inclusiveness, if it does not arise, and you have a certain level of power in your hands, then definitely it will lead to various kinds of conflicts, there's no question about that. So, we have worked with millions of people, we have worked in the prisons it's mandatory now in all the central prisons in South India, and there are various other things we are doing to make this happen. Definitely we have also tried to work with very major leaders, particularly I have focused upon the business leaders because 100 years ago, if you looked at this world, military leadership was the most powerful leadership. In the last 100 years, it has evolved into a situation where democratically elected leaders, political leaders are the most powerful people. But that is going to change, and that's already beginning to change, and it's going to change very rapidly in the next 10 to 15 years. You will see in the future, the economic leaders are going to be the most important people. Seeing this, I have started working with economic leaders, individually on certain levels, and we have definitely made a difference in the way they make their decisions, the way they conduct their businesses. This is being done. But this is being done very discreetly because it is not something that needs to be handled in public.
Sadhguru, just one thing, we didn't talk about the outreach programs of Isha. I'm not sure whether if there's a question, that's fine, we'll be answering it now, but people are aware, but I'm not sure if everybody's aware that Isha is not a religious organization, Isha is a spiritual organization, but it's far more than that. It's an educational organization coming up with different ideas, but very innovative ideas on education, yet conforming them to the standards that every child has to meet to get on in life. But something that's really important to me, it's an outreach program on something like reforestation of all of Tamil Nadu. It's a water outreach program. But before I say, I'd like Sadhguru to talk a little bit about that, about the volunteer work of Isha and all the specific work that Isha is doing to tackle some of the great problems that are facing education, medicine and environment that Isha is taking on.
See, what I see is right now in India, India is sitting on a threshold of economic prosperity. Now the question is, will we sit on the threshold forever or are we going to cross it? Much economic boom is happening in the country. Unlike various other countries, particularly Western nations, today so much economic activity is happening, but what we need to realize is economic activity is happening at this level, whatever percentages we're talking about, 8%, 9% is happening because a large mass of people have been in such depths of poverty that now whatever little happens, percentages are showing big. But the actual quality of life of the people, of a large number, is still not in any great condition. So almost 65% of India lives in the villages. And the life in the village you cannot say it has improved in any great sense. Yes, of course, now they have cell phones, now they have bore wells. It has improved, you cannot say it has not improved either. But at the same time, you must understand this, that India is not India as a people is not a helpless population. It's a hugely enterprising population. I don't know, some people tell me the statistics, I'm not 100% sure. They say only 7% of Indians are employed, 93% are self-employed. This was in 2000. Maybe that percentage is little less now, maybe 10% is employed, 90% is self-employed. Maybe he's just selling a small heap of vegetables in street corner, but he's an entrepreneur. He understands the market, he knows how he has to make his own propaganda by shouting a certain thing, he knows where to place himself. He has a certain thought process, which I see is very, very unique. You don't see this anywhere else in the world. There's such fabulous entrepreneurs. Even the street kids are such wonderful entrepreneurs, you know.
Yeah.
That entrepreneurship is just there everywhere. But it is not going where it should naturally go, simply because the agencies which should facilitate this process by building the necessary infrastructure, creating things around which are necessary for them to progress like this. More than anything, there are any number of hurdles which don't allow a person to, you know, be truly enterprising in this country unless you have a certain pull. So, one aspect of what we are trying to do is, one thing is nourishment and health is a serious, serious problem. In this effort to shift from subsistence farming to cash farming, when people were doing subsistence farming, if you went into a village 25–30 years ago, they were in tatters, there was no drinking water, there would be no electricity, there would be not a single automobile in the whole village. That's how it used to be. Today if you go, there's electricity, there's drinking water, everybody has cell phones, there are internet kiosks, you know, internet connectivity has come to remote villages. All these things are there. But one thing that's happened is at that time, the individual human being, a rural person means he was a sturdy person. Today if you go and see, 60% of the male population has not even grown to its full size, his skeletal system has not grown to full size. The condition of the female population is even worse. You don't see them much, but the male population you can clearly see. Or in other words, we are producing a whole underdeveloped population. If your body is not fully developed, even your brain will not develop. A substandard humanity you're producing and you're hoping to take the country somewhere. Unless you attend to these things, it'll be very, very difficult. This is not a pessimistic approach to the nation, but all I'm saying is when we have goals to fulfill, when we are thinking of becoming a certain kind of economic power in the world, it is very important the fundamentals are handled. If you don't handle the fundamentals, you don't have the legs but you want to go up the mountain, it's not going to work. So in this context, we started the Action for Rural Rejuvenation, fundamentally on one level to rejuvenate the rural spirit. So we started off with yoga and sports, which became a huge, phenomenal movement. It's been one of the most incredible things to watch, because when we did this annual, village, we call this Gramotsavam, where all the village teams come and play, some 814 teams from across Tamil Nadu come and participate, of all kinds of age groups. Women over 70 years of age coming and playing ball in public in front of in competitive levels. Such a thing has never happened. And when this festival happened, there were over 500,000 people attending. And the governor of Tamil Nadu was there, he looked at this and said, Sadhguru, this happened only when Mahatma came.
Wow.
Because we are not paying for transportation, we are not paying for food, everybody is spending their own money on bicycles, bullock carts, tractors, all kinds of transport. They're just coming by themselves. Probably a non-religious, non-political movement has never gathered this kind of momentum as it has right now, this whole process. So as a part of that, there are many children who are first-time school-going children, that is the first generation, their parents have never been to school. So fundamentally aimed at them, we started these Isha Vidya schools, which are going on wonderfully well right now. And the ecological project started because in 1998, some UN agencies came and made a prediction that by 2025, 60% of Tamil Nadu will become a desert. I don't like any kind of predictions, because when you make a prediction, you're only taking cold facts into account. You're never considering what is beating in the human heart. The human aspirations are ignored and you're making predictions. So I didn't like this prediction and I didn't believe it either. So I just drove around Tamil Nadu just to see if this is true, and I found out it's not true. I realized that it's not going to go till 2025, it's going to happen much faster. So I thought, what's the thing to do? I know we can complain, we can protest, we can write letters to the government. For whatever reasons, maybe they lack the organization, maybe they don't have the people, maybe they don't have the resources, whatever it is. For whatever reason, administrations are not able to fulfill this. Rather than protesting about it, I thought it's best we give them a hand.
Mm.
After all, this is a democracy, that means you're also a participant in the government in some way. You also have a stake in the government, it's not imposed upon you, it is your choice. Maybe you're making a lousy choice, but it's your choice.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
It's our choice, we are… It's… the governments that we have is essentially our choice, we made the choice. We better support them for 5 years rather than pulling them down all the time. So we just made… I just looked at it, what is it that we can do? Then I realized Tamil Nadu had only 16.5% green cover. Then the national aspiration is 33%. So I made a simple barefoot calculation. If we plant like 114 million trees in the next 6 to 8 years' time, in 15 years' time, we'll have 33% green cover. So I just told the meditators, we should just plant 114 million trees.
114 million.
Yeah, they
Right,
said,
it's nothing.
Sadhguru, do you know what that number is?
Yeah.
They know I'm poor on arithmetics.
Yeah.
So, I said, I know what the number is. They said, it's impossible. Who can plant 114 million trees? And I asked them a simple question. What is Tamil Nadu population? They said 62 million. I said, if all of us plant one tree today, take care of it for 2 years and plant one more, we got the number. So what's the difficulty? Can't you plant one tree? Even a beggar on the street can plant one tree. He will have an office growing for himself.
Yeah.
So, we started this movement and it took off. I spent almost 6 years planting trees in people's heads. That's the most difficult terrain. Once that's been done, now it's only replanting, which is happening very easily.
Yeah.
So, I think we've planted close to 14 million trees, out of which
Already?
about 10 million trees or little over 10 million trees have survived. The official figures say that the green cover in Tamil Nadu has gone up by 5.2% in 5.5, 6 years' time of work. And the Google Maps show much more than that. So, this is a tribute to the people, because with the spirit with which they have done all this is fantastic. Our work has been to raise the nurseries, organize and inspire them, but essentially on the ground it is them who are doing it and it's them who are taking care of the trees. So, these are people's movements that we're launching so that without the participation of the people, you cannot change anything here. And India is a kind of nation where you cannot change this country just by policy. You need a movement.
Yeah.
Otherwise nothing will change in this country.
Right. Okay, Sadhguru. Rajasthan next. Yeah, okay. All right.
Do I resemble a camel or something?
So, we've got a question coming in, question to both speakers. How visual and interactive media like films and internet is impacting the thought process of human beings and their emotions? Do you think we can use it as a medium to cultivate awareness amongst the masses? I'm going to hand this to you first, except to say one thing about the word masses. When we used to make films, when I used to make films in India, there was always this question is, who are the masses? Because if you ask anybody, who are you, they'll say, well, the masses are always somebody else. And so I've never been able to find out who the masses are, and the whole idea of the masses assumes that you are not the masses.
I think only the left parties know who the masses are.
Only the left parties, except the ones who run the left parties are not the masses. They know who they are, that's okay. But Sadhguru, I'll let you, then I'll talk about it, about both the dangers and the idea. I mean, interactive media like films and internet especially is a brilliantly democratic medium. I wish that when I started filmmaking I had the internet, because my desire to make films was not just to make films but to express myself. And not only express myself sitting at home, but express myself in a way that I could reach people. And what better way for me to be able to express myself through a little film, a 5-minute film, through my Twitter, through my blog, put on a film that I shoot, put it on my blog. The time now when somebody can spend $100, make a film, put it on the internet, put it on YouTube, and get 50 million hits. I mean, it's a dream, but people are doing that. So you could start, what you say in India, start a movement. Sometimes I wonder how wonderful it would have been if Mahatma Gandhi had mobile phones to talk on, or the internet, yeah. And then I wonder, I said, yeah, but on the other hand, what if Hitler had the internet, you know? It's a double-edged sword, but I'll let you take that question.
I was surprised for you. We've just launched an online inner engineering program.
Okay.
A 7-day, 10-hour session, which is having such a tremendous impact on people. We're yet to market it in a big way. The very intention of this is, as they're asking the question, see, for the very first time in the history of this planet, you can speak to the whole world if you have something valuable to say. And that's not a simple thing. That's not a simple thing. As you said, Mahatma Gandhi, I want you to look back further, like a Gautam Buddha or a Krishna, when they wanted to communicate something, they traveled from village to village by foot, trying to transmit this. And today you can sit here and talk to the whole world. If what you're talking makes sense to people, you are able to talk to the whole world just sitting in this place, and that's not a simple thing. That's a tremendous thing.
Yeah.
So, to raise human consciousness, should we use it? For sure we should, there's no question about
it. I agree. I'm a great believer in the internet. I'm a great believer that it is…
I'm not a believer in the internet, I'm a believer in everybody should know this.
No, okay. I'm a believer in, in the medium, and I'm a believer that finally, because the internet brings people, like we're doing right now, voices from all over the world together, a large part of the politics, I feel, I mean, it's a political answer I'm giving, a large part of the politics of this world survive on keeping people in the jaws of ignorance. And the access to the internet also takes people away, gives them a chance to come out and give them information, in knowledge, their ability to communicate with the rest of the world and open their minds and discuss with the rest of the world and open themselves out to a world wisdom, if you like. The fear, of course, is it could be world wisdom of Hitler, and you don't know, but at least it allows people to come out of ignorance. So, and then even filmmakers who make…
No, when you say this Hitler double-edged thing, you must see that it was not only him he would have done propaganda on the internet, even the Jewish community also would have done it.
That's true. That's completely right.
They could have spoken to the whole world what was happening to them.
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. So…
Now, they can only talk about it after it's been done.
Yeah.
They could… at that time nobody heard them.
No, completely right. Like we're hearing voices from war areas right now, and an individual blog will come out and WikiLeaks, and if you really want to get political. Okay, Sadhguru, question to you. We see a lot of agricultural families gradually moving to cities to avoid continuous famine or for better education to the children. This creates an imbalance in society in terms of economy and nature. How can we balance this together? I think this has probably come as a because of what all you talked about, the rural areas.
So, this is an effort we are making on all levels. We are trying to do various things. One thing is sport, which has made village a little vibrant. Wherever the sport has come, village has become quite vibrant. Village life has become vibrant. Now, for many of them, their lives revolve around that one volleyball match that's going to happen on the Saturday evening. There's a certain sense of pride. Instead of Saturday evening going to the city, they're staying back in the village because their village is playing a match, these kind of things. We are also trying to bring folk music back, folk music and dance back into the village. Just a generation ago, every agricultural activity had music and dance with it. Even today, in some parts of the country you can see it, but mostly it is dead. All the dancing and singing is done by the film stars. You guys are doing everything. The common people are neither dancing nor singing nor nothing. They're just sitting there and eating potato chips and watching you guys.
Or just dancing to our tune, right.
So, because working in the field, agriculture, as an activity, if you are doing it only for economic purpose, it's a heartbreaking activity. All these suicides that you're hearing of right now in the villages, the farmer suicides, one reason is definitely the economic reasons are there, but above all, it's when you work on the field just for economic reasons, it is naturally frustrating. Unless there is a bonding with the land, there is a certain love for what you're doing, there is a certain connection between the man and the soil with which he is working, which is what all these folk songs were trying to build, always was there in the tradition. Without that song, just going there morning to evening, working and coming home, where there's no sense of community, there's no sense of togetherness, it's a pretty bad life. So making village life worthwhile, that it's worth living in the village, creating the necessary hygiene, creating the necessary health atmosphere, creating necessary education facilities for the children of tomorrow, and above all, making life in the village joyful enough, vibrant enough, so that any vibrance means you have to go to the city street, not necessarily in the village itself something is happening. As a part of this, we are trying to bring folk music and dance and sport, all these things to village. But still, we have close to 700,000 villages in the country. We are covering some 3 to 4,000 villages now, but still it's a drop in the ocean. This needs to be funded, this needs to be activated on a major scale. We need to understand if you want to build a nation, there are certain fundamental things that you have to do with the people, which we have never done. Just building a road, just building a thing is not going to make the nation. We have to do something about the people, that they must feel strongly about the nation. Right now, their sense of caste, creed, religion is stronger than the idea of the nation in their mind. After all, your nationhood is just an idea. Unless you reinforce that idea in individual human beings' mind, you don't really have a nation, you're sitting on a time bomb in many ways. So, bringing a certain cultural integrity to the whole thing, not just playing it in the television, but bringing it down to the street and making this happen on that level is what we are trying to do. But people think what we're doing is massive because we're talking of a few thousand villages, but compared to what needs to be done, it's just a drop in the ocean.
Yeah. There's also in this case, oh my God, here it is. I was going to talk about that. Somebody has, like, telepathy. Mr. Kapur, could you please talk about your upcoming movie Pani and how do you think it is going to bring actionable impact on society? My God, it's kind of a burden for me to make a film that has actionable impact on society, but okay, we'll try. But right from the last question, one of the big problems in villages in India is that water is not readily available. 60 to 70% of Indian agriculture relies on groundwater. Nobody's quite decided who the groundwater belongs to, and as more and more factories are moving into the village and urban areas are leaking in, they have the power and the money to use more powerful pumps to take the groundwater. So groundwater, well, water is going down and then groundwater is being taken up and then being priced out of the village.
This is a resource that I can steal from your land without coming into your land.
Absolutely.
That's something
Absolutely.
people need to understand.
But that's what's happening. And so while people say, well, water is not privatized, it is effectively privatized because it's being taken out of the ground. And then because the people with more money take it out of the ground. And then effectively something very mythical is happening, is water is traveling away from there, and water is now following not where it's needed most, but where it gets the best price. In fact, water is following greed, not need. And as it going into the urban areas where it gets the best price, everybody in the village, as the village dries up, people move into the urban areas, creating huge problems of urban infrastructure. So the reason I'm saying is that's exactly what my film Pani is about. Pani is
You know,
about…
Mahatma Gandhi said you can't even tax salt that comes out of water or the
Yeah.
ocean. But now, we are going to a place where a bottle of water or a liter of water costs more than a liter of milk in the country.
Absolutely, yeah, completely. And so that is what Pani is about for that question. It is about a slightly in the future, although I keep saying it's in the future only because I want to bring all the elements together. But really what I'm going to be talking about is happening someplace, somewhere in the world already. And it's about a time when we're living in mega cities, and now the water is running out in the cities, and the cities are divided between those that have water, which is very few, about 15%, and the 85% of the people who don't have water. And the conflict has
The new
started.
description of haves and have-nots.
Yeah, absolutely. Pani and no pani. And democracy is pretty simple. Democracy has become so simple that all it means is you give us votes and we'll give you water. So it's the simplest form of democracy, but water is the metaphor for exploitation. So the question, actionable impact on society. I think that while what you're doing is an outreach program, I as a filmmaker in a film can try my best to raise awareness of these issues. And if I can raise awareness and people coming out of the film, it's very, very interesting structure, the art of storytelling. Most commercial films end to sublimate the emotion that they have created. So they'll create anger in you, but in the end, if you walk out angry, people say, oh, what's happened? I'm just walking out angry. And if it's a love story, then all the lovers meet. But if the lovers don't meet, you come out dissatisfied. There is an art of storytelling that on one level, you bring people out satisfied, so the lovers meet. Yet, in my story, there's an underlying
I
thing.
don't think you should reveal the plot right
Oh, okay, all right. No plot. Over. Mind you, everybody walks into a film knowing there's a love story and the lovers meet. But that's essentially, so, but you come out of the film feeling angry about the fundamental issues, even though on a plot level it's fine. It's like you're going from A to B on a very heavily trafficked road. You can get from A to B and that's your plot, but because the traffic is so bad, you come out angry about the traffic, you know. So there's something like that we do in plot. So yes, hopefully it's changed. Somebody said he's talking too much about his own film. Move on. Okay. Sadhguru's question to you. Everybody says, do not go spiritual shopping. I don't know what that means, but anyway, spiritual shopping in a mall. But then I want to ask, when one knows something is not working for you, at least in your own experience, and try to look for another path. It's from somebody called Unorthodox, Dayton, Ohio. Unorthodox. Spiritual shopping, looking for it in a mall. That's pretty unorthodox. Yes, okay.
See, if the seeker has to decide whether this works for me or not, he will make this decision from the wrong parameters. When it becomes difficult for him, he will quit. When he thinks he is stagnant, he will quit. If you have to use an analogy, it's like you're digging a well, no, we're pani, you know, you're digging a well for water.
You can't talk about my film. Okay, somebody said
I was
no.
the one who stopped you from revealing the plot. So.
Okay, all right, okay.
So if you're digging a well, I have personally been in this, I don't know if I've spoken to you. I actually personally got about 6 to 8 labor together and I dug a well myself. With my own hands, I worked 8 to 10 hours and dug a well, I learned to use the dynamite and I made a well.
Okay.
And I hit water.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was an incredible experience for me because as it went in, as you sink in, after some time, you just have a piece of sky and just this 6 guys with me, 3 of us are handling crowbars, other 3 guys are filling up the earth and somebody pulls it up every time. As you go up, the whole bonding of being there in that little hole continuously, and when you look up, only that piece of sky, and you're all the guys that are there. I just worked with them for almost 4 months digging this well. See my hands. So, when you're digging a well, every day this thought will come to you, am I hitting the wrong place? It was such a continuous process for me. We've gone 30 feet, 35 feet, we've gone and no trace of water.
Oh.
You're like every day, every moment you're thinking, because your effort is involved, your money is involved, and above all, in the village you'll become a fool, okay? You've picked up a challenging spot to hit the well, and every time you hit your crowbar or your pickaxe, you're thinking, is this really the place? Maybe somebody else comes and say, some other wise guy will come and say, you are not going to hit anything here. You come there, you do that part, I can feel it. I can feel the water gurgling there, you come and hit there. But that's on the surface, now I have to again dig. So just that thought continuously torments you when you're digging, till you hit the water. Now, what I say is, first of all, you have gone on a spiritual path with some group or some guru or whatever. That at one point when you made the decision, you saw the value of it. That's why you have invested your life there, otherwise you wouldn't. I believe so, unless you just throw your life wherever you go, I don't know about that. But otherwise I believe, because you sensed something, you tasted something, something touched you, and you thought this is it and you went for it. I would say you persist for some more time. Unless you find something seriously wrong with what they're doing, okay? Unless you find it's something totally a hoax that you got fooled into it, yes, you have to change your decision. Otherwise, if you don't find any change in them, they're stable, they're good and they're doing their work properly, I would suggest wherever you are, you continue to dig. If you keep changing your mind every other day, you'll have lot of holes in your land, but no well. Pani will not happen.
Yeah.
So, it's best to persist unless you have discovered something seriously wrong with them.
Yeah. I do have friends in California who do spiritual shopping. Every time I go back to California and they found a new society, a new guru, a new thing, it's like you found a new girlfriend or a new boyfriend or you've changed your house. And I just… and yet I know that they're looking for some kind of spiritual search. So what what is it inside them that is provoking this constant desire to find something new? What is that restlessness that provokes that?
See, one thing is wrong ideas about spiritual process.
Yeah.
Not understanding that when you're looking for something so profound, you need to invest a certain amount of your time, energies and life to find results. Fanciful commercial books on spirituality, they read that and some instant gratification should happen. If that's not happening, they want to quit. Or it is just they don't have a mind of their own, they're just guided by whatever is the fashion in the local area. There are all various reasons, but essentially, lack of profoundness, you're becoming flaky in everything.
Yeah, I know. I was really cursed for this statement that I made once with somebody very important. Said, how do I find peace? Very quickly I said, take a sleeping pill. So I did. There is no way, because the journey…
Even that takes an hour and a half.
What? Even that takes an hour and a half, right. I was just… because in my experience, the journey to spirituality actually goes through the path of your own demons, and there is no greater danger or there's no greater fear laden path than your own demons. So, but how can you go there without actually walking through that? I mean, that's my experience. Maybe some people find it without that. Maybe I have more demons than others.
It need not be so, because all the demons that you're making, you can
Yeah.
put them to sleep in no time.
How do I put my demons to sleep? I'm sorry, I have to ask you that. Yes, how? It must be…
Somebody's asking, dear Shekhar…
Oh, can we just talk about demons for a second? Yeah, please. I promise you, Sandeep from San Diego, Sandeep, I think I know you. All right, Sandeep, San Diego, I'll come back to that. But let's just talk about demons. How do you put your demons to sleep?
You stop creating them.
But I've created them already.
No, you have to actually… see, anything that is your making, which is your psychological making, you have to actively keep them up, otherwise they'll die. If you don't invest a certain amount of energy, they'll just die.
Yeah.
So, if you do not invest anything in their direction, they'll just die by themselves, you don't have to kill them. There's no need to… there is no need to slay demons which are imaginary, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'll become a Don Quixote.
Right, okay. Dear Shekhar Kapur, you're a pro in filmmaking. Okay, you're a pro in filmmaking and given us so many wonderful films. Now you also have come in touch with the inner science. Is there a possibility of using filmmaking as a means to raise human consciousness? Yes. I ask this question so often. I don't think I need to make a film on Buddha to talk about Buddhism. I don't think I need to make a film on Krishna to talk about the philosophy of duality, of Maya, of Krishna, or Krishna Leela. I feel that almost any story that you make, if there is an underlying subtext inside you of a search for any kind of spirituality, and you're honest, now whether you're a filmmaker or an artist or a poet, if you're honest in what you do, that spirituality naturally touches your character.
It has to find expression.
It has to find expression. And if it doesn't find expression, you're merely making a film from an intellect, not really from the heart. And quite honestly, I have found, and when I made some films that have lasted 20 years later, people are still watching them. 25 years later, they're still watching them. And the only explanation I can give is that their relevance somewhere touches something that is deeply mythic and therefore deeply spiritual, that you found in yourself at that time, and therefore the audience is still discovering, because that doesn't change. People change, actors change, fashion change, plot change, ideas change. Something that is deeply mythic and deeply spiritual does not change. So yeah, I think films should be spiritual. There must be, they all should be. Question I got. In the Western world, the talk is of love and truth. That the ultimate truth is love, and that we don't have love, but rather we are love. We don't have love, but rather we are love. And this is how we connect to our purpose and the highest selves. Do you agree, Sadhguru? Love, truth, highest selves, purpose, connect. Yes, I'm so glad this question is for you. Yeah.
See, if a society is hungry, in that society, food will be the ultimate quantum, to the ultimate value. If you're ill, health will be the ultimate value for you. If you are in poverty, wealth will be the ultimate value for you. If you're deprived of love, love will be the ultimate value for you. If you're deprived of happiness, happiness will be the ultimate value for you. Whatever you're deprived of, at that moment you think this is the highest thing. But even if that happens, people will realize after it happens that it is not so. So right now in the Western world, having been through this industrial revolution, for the first time, women moving out of the house, and that generation which could not… Today, women are moving out of the house, but they're able to make the necessary arrangements, and man has probably adjusted to fill in certain gaps that she left, and maybe things are getting a little better. But that generation, when suddenly the changes happened, a whole generation of children went without much expression of love towards them. Because it's a flux that people were still trying to come to terms with how to handle this. Always it was assured the woman of the house will be there and she'll love the children and this is it. But once that changed, before we could adjust to that, one generation or two generations of people suffered from lack of attention and lack of love and this kind of things. Today various things are happening, as there is maternity leave, there's paternity leave, the man will stay back and take care of the child, and the attitudes have changed, various things in the world have changed, and access to various things have changed, various facilities have come up in the social structure to cater to these things. Otherwise, that one or two generations, in many ways, were very much deprived of love. Because of that, I think there is so much talk about love. I'm not trying to demean love. Love is a very essential ingredient in your life. I would like you to look at it this way. You're looking for pleasantness, essentially, in your life. Pleasantness means if your body becomes pleasant, we normally call it health. If it becomes very pleasant, it becomes pleasure. If your mind becomes pleasant, we call it peace. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it joy. If your emotions become pleasant, we call it love. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it compassion. If your life energies become pleasant, we call this bliss. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it ecstasy. If your external situations become pleasant, we call it success. So this is all a human being is looking for. So, only if emotionally he is in a sweet place, which is what love is. It's human emotions turning sweet, either towards somebody or just like that, whichever way it happens. Now, just your emotions being sweet, is it enough for you? Don't you need health? Don't you need well-being? Don't you need food? Don't you need peacefulness? Don't you need competence? Don't you need capability? If you have a lot of love and you become incompetent, which happens to lots of people unfortunately then I don't think people will enjoy that or relish that. So this talk about love being the core of the universe, all this is simply coming from a certain state of deprivation within oneself. People who have grown up in traditional families in India, we never think of love because we didn't have to think, nobody told us they love us. My mother never ever told me that she loves me, nor did that question arise whether she loves me or not. I did not even realize that I need to be loved. Because the whole atmosphere was such that there was… such a question never arose in me, do I need to be loved by somebody? Because they set such an atmosphere, such thoughts never came to us. It's just like only if there is poverty in the house and there's not enough food, probably you will think so much about food and how to get it. When it's there every day, you don't think about it, you don't think about making an arrangement for it. Similarly, when love is simply there all around you in every possible way, you never even thought that it is something that has to be bought from somewhere or gotten from somewhere, you know. So, these things are coming from certain levels of deprivation. Love is the sweetest way to be for a human being, it's a good way to be, it's a wonderful way to be. But at the same time, it's not necessary to exaggerate this beyond just a limitation. Now you're talking about… the questioner is talking about love and truth. I don't know what kind of truth you're talking about. If you're talking about the ultimate nature of the truth, it is universality, it is absolute inclusiveness. Love means, to love you need two. You're trying to include with love. Moments of inclusion will happen and then you fall apart. No lovers anywhere have found continuous state of inclusiveness. Moments of inclusiveness and then falling apart, moments of inclusiveness, then falling apart, this is how people experience it. So ultimate truth is an absolute state of inclusiveness which cannot be termed as love. Love is an effort in that direction. So is joy, so is peacefulness. When you're peaceful, you're actually one with everything. When you're joyful, you're actually… when you sit and laugh with each other, aren't you in some way bonded as one? That's why they're drinking buddies going on too well.
Okay. Question from me before I go, that's to me. Satyam Shivam Sundaram, what does that really mean?
The movie's already made, you can't…
Come on. Yeah.
It's already a done thing.
I know.
Another Kapur.
Yeah,
But
okay. Okay, all right. Okay, I'll come back to that one. Yeah. Oh, this one too. Many Isha practitioners around the world have benefited from the practice and being with Sadhguru. Would you care to share your experience and the impact it has had on you and your work? What message would you convey to budding young directors around the world? I'm not Sadhguru's best disciple. No, I'm his best disciple. I'm not his most disciplined disciple. All I would say is that if I follow the practices a little more disciplined, come on, why are you putting me in this? Because I have to say it in front of him and I cannot say a lie. I have to tell the truth. And here I am getting caught in this whirlwind. So I'll take the last part. What message would you like to convey to the other directors? Well, fantastic. You have to do this. I mean, there's no doubt that the practices that are there, I've seen my friends benefit from it. I've seen, okay, so here's what I'll say. I've seen a sense of giving and a sense of service where what the people that have done the practice, I find that in their work, they give to the work more passionately and more completely and with less stress and prejudice and less conflict than anybody else. And I've always wondered that. That's one of the most amazing experiences I have when I go to Isha, is the people who've done the practice or are doing the practice, their attitudes to what they do. It doesn't matter. They don't have to do anything as big as filmmaking. And I sometimes wonder, if I bring that to my filmmaking, that sense of absolute giving, passion, compassion, humility to my filmmaking, I'll probably make a lot more films. I would get into less conflict. I would be less afraid of the failure of a film. Now I'm talking to all those young directors out there, and make many, many more films. Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed here because I'm not the most disciplined disciple of Isha, so sorry. But next question. Yeah, okay. Intensity, there's a question for you, Sadhguru. Thank you very much. Thank God for that. On intensity. Spirituality is to be pursued with intensity. I'm very intense in many things, but I'm not always sure if the thing I'm pursuing indeed leads to further my spirituality or my ego. Oh, yeah, leads to further my spirituality or my ego. How do I alert myself in the path I'm pursuing intensely is wrong? How do I do it?
No, I don't know where he got this, but you should not pursue anything intensely.
Nothing.
No, there is no need to pursue anything intensely. When you say I'm pursuing something intensely, probably what you're trying to say is I'm pursuing something madly. You should be intense. You must see how to raise the intensity of your being, your mind, your way of existence. If you make this very intense, anything that you do will be naturally intense. But if you try to do something intense, one thing is you may end up doing it senselessly. Another thing is you will exhaust yourself and expend yourself too quickly. If you try to do anything intensely, you will expend yourself too quickly. There is no need to do anything intensely, but you must make this one absolutely intense to the life process. If that is so, every action that you do, there will be ease and intensity at the same time. Without ease, if intensity comes, you'll burn yourself out.
That's fascinating. I'm putting that right now to my filmmaking and I'm trying to evaluate how that works. I agree with you, you have to be very intense.
You as a person should become very intense.
Yeah.
You don't have to pursue something intensely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So does everything you say, but… Question for Shekhar. If there is a documentary on Sadhguru, will you direct it?
Who's?
From Preeti in Mumbai. Of course I will direct it. But somebody sitting right next to me has to agree to subject himself to a documentary. Come on, it's difficult enough to get him here and answer a few questions. What are you talking about? Of course I will. Of course I will. But where do you end it? So Preeti, if you're there, where do you end the documentary? If somebody could write the end of the documentary for me, I promise I'm going to make it. But I promise you will not be able to write the end right now. Okay. So that was my question. That was an easy one. Let me find one. Okay. Um, there are so many gurus, so many methods, so many followers, but so few realized beings. Is the path very tough or our pursuit weak? It's from Usha Sonam. So many gurus, so many methods, so many followers, but so few realized beings. Is the path very tough or just our pursuit that's weak?
I would disagree with a question that is, there aren't so many gurus. There are scholars, there are teachers, there are charlatans, there are godmen, but there are not too many gurus, there are very few. And are there very few realized beings? Not true. There are many, many realized beings. It is just that they don't carry a banner around themselves that they are realized. They are not that gross, and they may not fit into your idea of what a realized being is. They may not fit into your ideas of what realized being is, because your ideas have nothing to do with realization. So, definitely, the number of gurus are not enough, they have dwindled down. Maybe there are any number claiming, anybody who reads one chapter of Gita claims himself to be a guru without any knowledge about himself, okay? Anybody who reads half a book can become a guru, that's a different thing. Anybody who can, especially in the Western world, if you can chant 2 mantras, you can become a guru, okay?
Thank you. I know what to do when I feel flops now.
Yes. You just have to stop cutting your beard and learn a couple of mantras.
Thank you, Sadhguru. I'll carry your books. All right.
So, at the same time, there are any number of realized beings. There are any number with us, different levels of realization. It is just that they will not carry a banner on their head that they are realized. They are in fantastic states of experience and perception, but there is no need to carry a banner. And as I said, they may not fit into your ideas, because that is realization. Every time a guru comes, he naturally faces persecution at some point or the other, simply because he doesn't fit into your ideas of what a realized being should be, because your ideas have been formed by the one who had come yesterday. The yesterday one also, you persecuted him because he did not match with the day before yesterday guru. So the today one also you are having the same problems. So now once this has become accepted, you're looking for other realized beings. You think they will be just like me. People who are around me, in case they're realized, you believe they'll be just like me? Not at all. That is not the quality. Realization is not about making carbon copies. Realization is like a garden full of flowers. There is a rose flower, there is a lotus, there is a jasmine, there is one tiny tumbe, which is the dearest to Shiva, you know, tiny little flower. So you think, you see a lotus flower and you accept that as realized. See, you have no way to judge. For example, let me put myself into the example. You do not know whether I am realized or not. There is no way for you to know. So you should not even believe that I am realized or not realized. You just have to see whether being with me is useful for your growth or not. If it is, hang around, what does it matter whether I am realized or not? Because you will not know, how will you judge? How will you judge of a dimension that you do not even know, you have not even tasted? So there is no need to make up your mind whether I am realized or not, whether I am useful to you or not, that's all.
Okay. People often ask me, and because I'm a filmmaker and like science fiction, and you always read about the idea of looking for life outside Earth. So I keep saying, we're not looking for life, we're looking for clones. We look around ourselves and we'll find life all around us. Then you ask them, describe it, they say, well,
Don't we already have enough clowns? Do we want to clone them?
Yeah, correct, right.
You want to clone them also?
Yeah, we're just looking for ourselves, we're not looking for intelligence. Okay, before we end… Oh, that was short. Okay. Before we end, any last comments from Sadhguru and Shekhar? My last comments are about… I just made them. No, I just made them. I made my comments about us being the arrogance of our individuality. So let me ask a last question. Let me ask the last question to you, and that's the last comment is, what is individuality?
It is something that comes out of your instinct for self-preservation, because unless you develop a certain individuality, you cannot protect yourself, you cannot preserve yourself. So this individuality gets built up initially for physical survival. After some time, due to misunderstanding of life or due to a very strong identification with the individual body. See, the bodies are individual. This is one body, that is another body. Whatever you do, this is a separate body, that's a separate body. This is one organism, that's another organism. Though it is functioning in tandem with a larger organism of the planet and the solar system and the cosmos, which nobody can deny. Today modern science can prove it to you, how every cell and every atom in your body is transacting with everything else for it to exist right now, the way it is. So the individuality is formed essentially for self-preservation. When we come to self-preservation, the only thing that needs preservation in you is your physical body. Physical body has to be preserved. Right now, if I trample upon every idea you have in your head, next moment you can come up with totally brand new ideas. But if I trample upon one idea of yours, you could feel threatened, because you feel your survival is being attacked. Your survival is never in question except with the physical body. If I trample upon every emotion you have, every idea you have, your belief systems, your ideologies, everything, if I beat it down right now, actually your intelligence is capable of coming up with something totally new the next moment. But because you cling to this, the next one will never happen. People cling to… the stronger they cling to it, the less creative and less concretized they become in their individuality. Individual essentially means, it comes from the word indivisible, that is, you're not further divisible. But now, in your search for survival, of psychological survival and emotional survival, people make themselves into many things. Right now, already in the question itself, there was a thing about, is it my ego, is it my this? Where is your ego? There is no such thing, it's just a nasty part of you which you want to label it as Mr. Ego, you know. Some aspect of you is nasty, you don't want to see that I'm nasty, you said it's my ego.
Right, right.
Sometimes you're pleasant, sometimes you're unpleasant, you don't even want to come to terms with that. So individual means you're not further divisible. Is there only one person in this body or two? If there is two, either you need, you're schizophrenic, you need a psychiatrist, or maybe you need an exorcist. Two cannot be there, there's only one, this is indivisible, this is just one being. So, the individuality is a disease. Individual is a beautiful thing, it's a compact organism. But individuality or individualism is a kind of a disease that has grown in the world. It's all about exclusiveness. Everything you see today in the world, people are promoting exclusiveness. And then they're wondering why there is conflict. If you promote exclusiveness, how can there be no conflict? There can only be conflict, isn't it?
Okay. Thank you, Sadhguru. Thank you very much.